What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the cast here at Celestia Radio. I am your host, Matthias, as is usual. Yeah, I'm back on the as is usual thing. It comes, it goes. I can't get rid of it. I'm here with Nat and Dalit, the ever wonderful co-hosts who are the ones that make the show actually interesting. What's up, guys?
Nothing much. We're late by like 1.5 hours because we were fucking yapping away like three white women. What's up,
What
Dolly?
is this? What is this opening today?
What?
What is
Sure.
what is happening here?
Yap.
I mean, think about it, man. We had a very interesting hour and a half of conversation leading up to this episode. Like our pre-cast chat, we went from talking about some games. Did we want to talk about them for cast? To talking about our childhoods, to talking about random Twitter stuff, to then back to topic ideas. Then, we got some real world lore about where I grew up and live. So more childhood
Which
stuff.
is fucking wild.
Yeah, and now we're here recording an episode. What'd you expect?
Yeah, hi everyone. Dolly?
Yeah, no, I'm here. I'm here. I'm trying to consider how I'm going to. I guess I'm just not going to edit it. I guess this is just the opening. All right, fair enough.
Yeah, we can redo the opening. If you want.
Nah, fuck it.
Okay,
sure?
and then I'll leave that.
Am I sure? This is fine. This is finally going to be one of Nat's correct calls. An editor, leave this in.
Okay. Okay. Well, should be interesting. Right. I guess if you're listening to this right now, listeners, we left it in.
But okay.
The way Dalit said that really threw me for a loop. I don't know what I'm doing anymore.
Nah, bro, just go with the flow. We're all good. We're moving along. We're trucking along.
Listeners,
this is a good opening.
You can tell this episode's chaos. You can tell it's chaos here at Celestia Radio right now. We're starting late. Matt's a little under the weather. It's interesting around here. So I'm gonna take us past this intro finally.
I like this idea.
So
no, please let's stay in the intro for a little bit longer.
Nat, I will
episode whatever this is. Episode whatever this is. The extended intro. Oh, geez.
Speaking of smite, say the next line, Matt.
Oh, I'm terrible at transitions, guys. We're gonna talk about D&D. Yeah, we're gonna talk about D&D. There you go. That's the episode. You know what we're talking about, so let's jump into it. How are we gonna do this? I think we're gonna talk about our first experiences playing D&D. That seems like a good place to start.
Okay, just hold on. Real quick, before the proper introductions, let's do another pre-introduction into this topic. So the reason why we decided to talk about D&D is because the new book came out 2 weeks ago at the time of this recording. That's correct, guys?
It's longer than that.
Oh, longer? Well, yeah.
It's come out recently.
It's recently, but it's I think it's more than 2 weeks.
Yeah. So because of that book dropping, the was it official 5.5?
That's what we're calling it anyway. I think right now it's just the 5th edition revision.
I think they officially called it 5.5.
Oh, did they? Okay. I was hearing a lot of.
I think so. Yeah.
A lot of wishy-washy stuff on this. I'm like, I have no idea why we're doing this. 3.5 was such a good idea. It's 5.5.
Yeah. So that's the reason why this topic was on our radar. And now let's go into Matt's introduction. How do we get into D&D?
We all play D&D to some extent or another.
As a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm. So we figured, hey, let's talk about D&D because we've talked about every other nerdy thing under the sun. Why not this? Yeah. So I figure a good place to start is to kind of talk about our first interactions with D&D. I mean, a little background because you want a little bit of background with these things, I suppose.
Yeah.
And I guess I'll start us off. I first came into contact with D&D. I'd heard about it for most of my life, I think, but I never really looked into what it was or anything. It's just Dungeons and Dragons. That's some kind of game thing, right? And having always been around games in some form or another, I was like, I'll eventually bump into what it is. And it was around, I want to say, 7th grade where I finally actually got in, like, hands on with it. But I got interacted with Pathfinder, first edition
Ooh.
Pathfinder,
Yep.
which is more or less 3.5 edition of D&D from what I've been told. There's some differences, but it's more or less 3.5. And Dalit, you've touched Pathfinder, right? Is that true?
I've done some reading on Pathfinder, but Pathfinder is, yeah, it is in fact just 3.5 with a couple of further shifts to make it unique.
Okay. So, yeah, so that was where I really started. It was my brother, me, my cousin, and I think it was like 3 of my friends at the time. Because my brother's the one who brought it forward because uh his some family member of his uh was just like, hey, this is the thing that I play and I want to kind of bond with you a little bit, so here. And then he was like, oh cool, I'm gonna show this to Matt and our friends. And that's what he did.
Mm-hmm.
So we all sit down, we all look at these books and these characters and etc. and so forth, and we're like, oh, this is cool, let's do it. Um, so you got what our first like group ended up being was my brother was DMing. Uh, I was a sorcerer. My cousin was a paladin. And then my other friends were a barbarian and a fighter. It may have just been 2 of my friends because that's all I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So a 5-person party, and I like one of the feats you could take was like the leadership feat, and it was like you could bring an NPC essentially with you wherever you went. And I took that feat right off the bat, so I ended up doubling as our healer. So I essentially was playing 2 characters.
Hey.
That's basically how that ended up working. And yeah, so we played a couple games. It was pretty good. I love my brother, and I'm hesitant to say this because I don't know if he actually listens to our cast or not. Uh, so
He does.
hey,
Trust me, I know.
hey, I love you, man, and I mean no offense when I say this. DMing with him being our DM for first time players, terrible idea.
Roro.
Because my brother's my brother's idea of enjoyment is very different from mine and most of our friends at the time. He wants Dark Souls, but Dark Souls with a difficulty turned all the way to the hardest possible.
Oh no! Oh,
And that's considering Dark Souls base being as easy as possible. He wants it to as hard as possible. That's where he got his enjoyment. No, that's how it was back then. He's mellowed out on that a lot.
Right.
But back then, that was where he enjoyed things. So things were unnecessarily difficult.
Fucking hard, yeah.
Yeah, like one of our first encounters going through the woods was a unicorn. And it's like,
oh, lovely.
What do you want us to do? Why is this unicorn aggroing us, first off? Like, what did we do to this unicorn? None of us are evil. And it's like forcing my cousin to like tank it as a paladin who was like super anti-evil, so he could only really do damage to evil things.
Right.
So it's just like, what do you want us to do here? So yeah, it was an interesting first experience. With some feedback, I tried to help him with the DMing going forward with the story elements because story writing was something I already was like dabbling in.
Yep.
And just a little bit of like NPC management and things like that to try and help. And I used those ends to try and get him to dial back the difficulty.
Was it
He did
successful?
a little
I was
bit.
about to say it doesn't sound like it was, but okay.
A little bit. The fights became manageable if you were lucky.
Oh, okay, yep.
But one bad roll and that might change. And if you've played D&D, that's never gonna happen. One bad roll? No, never. Don't bring up our last D&D session.
I was just about to say, it literally started with all of us about to fucking die. I immediately went down the floor.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
Yeah.
Ooh.
So yeah. It was an interesting first interaction with Dungeons and Dragons, but I will say I very quickly was sold on it. I loved the story. I love like build your own story. I loved all the character classes and customization, and I was my very first character who, when I write my campaigns and stuff today, he generally appears sometimes maybe just as a background character, but he's there somewhere. He was a half dragon sorcerer, and in the higher levels of Pathfinder you could take advanced classes or whatever they were called, and I took on Dragon Disciple. And
half dragon isn't dragonborn, correct?
No, they are different things.
I literally looked like a half elf because his mother was a half elf.
Right.
But his father was a full dragon.
Right.
So
okay, half dragons are actually different than what I was led to believe as well.
What do you mean?
Half dragons, as far as I'm aware, are in fact just dragonborn with tails and all the bright colors that they now have. I'm not familiar.
That's how they are
with them being.
That's how they
humanoid.
are now. Yeah. So that was
like human presenting.
Yeah, that was. There was no precedent in the books that we had to us that was a thing. Like half dragons were an existing thing, which we had the base Pathfinder rulebook, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and the Bestiary. So those are the 3 books that were at our disposal, and nothing in there had a precedent for what half dragons looked like or what they were. And I don't even remember if base Pathfinder had a stat block or a precedent for what they were. Right. So it came down to when we were making our characters, I said, hey, you can have a dragon bloodline sorcerer. Can my character be a half dragon? His father was a dragon that took human form, and then his mother was a half elf. And my brother was like, sure, if that's what you want to do. He called his family member that got him into it, and he said, does this make sense? Does this work? And he was like, yeah, that's fine. And I was like, okay, so that's what I'm doing.
Hey.
And that's what it was. And, the D&D being what it is, and, a lot of the lore being up to the person writing the story or campaign you're playing in, that can or cannot make sense. And to me, it was, and being the one who ended up helping him with some of the story beats and what we were playing, sure, I made it make sense. Why not? Even his dragon ancestry didn't even start showing up until he started getting those sorcery powers and whatnot. First time dude's hands turned into dragon claws, let me tell you, my dude was a little what the heck? Why do I have dragon claws? But yeah, so I had a half dragon. We played I got to play him in a couple games with my brother. Then I tried to bring him back in some other stuff later. But I never ended up getting to play the character to fruition. But I did keep reading about Dungeons and Dragons, keep reading the books, Pathfinder books, and I wrote campaigns, and then I wrote out stories for my character, what he could do and things like that. And the story that I had, and the story that he was going on when we were actually playing, but never actually got to see it to fruition, and why the character constantly reappears in any game that I run is because he essentially ended up in a deity by the end of his journey. He's just this. He's not even like half dragon anymore. He's basically a full dragon deity at this point. He just generally is in a human form.
Yeah.
Or humanoid form, because he looks like a half elf generally.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that was my first character. He was basically just 19-year-old kid chased out of town, grabbed his best friend who happened to be a cleric, and said, "Hey, you're going with me." And he's like, "What?" And picked him up over his shoulder, and they booked it. And that's where they started their journey. He kidnapped his best friend from the temple and said, "Come on, we're going on a journey," because he got chased out of town.
Fun.
Find out some fun stuff. Like one of the things we did get to in that was like, his dad was the king of the golden dragons, because the world was like the continent that we had set it on ended up being a divide. Like there was the kingdom of dragons to this way, and then the humanoids this way. His father was the king of the golden dragons. He ended up having a little brother that was a full dragon. So that was kind of cool. Yeah, there was a lot of fun little things like that. Like we had to do a little bit with it, and I had a lot of fun writing for that character and like fleshing out his journey. That we never really got to experience playing because my brother kept killing us over and over and over. And then eventually we got to actual D&D. But that's my introduction, my first
exciting
time with it.
Nice. So it's actually Pathfinder rather than
no, it's only it was
D&D that we
3.5.
know it. Oh, 3.5,
Yeah.
Pathfinder, which is basically 3.5 D&D. So.
Yeah.
Wait, so it was
Alright, well,
Pathfinder. So you had the whole three action economy and everything.
Yeah.
All right.
Based.
Yeah. It was actual Pathfinder.
Okay.
And all the complexities that were there.
Mm-hmm.
So many different checks.
Oh, we'll get on to checks, all right, later on in the video recording. I love that evil laugh of yours, because you know exactly what I'm on about.
It's true as well.
But yeah, Dollard, what's your first introduction to D&D/Pathfinder?
I didn't get into D&D until after high school. After high school, I started doing a lot of voiceover, and so I got in with a lot of creatives. And a group I was pretty commonly found with was running D&D. I wasn't a part of the game yet. And the DM at the time, my friend Dan, pulled me aside and said, "Hey, would you like to come in and save these assholes from themselves?" I was like, well, "I'm sorry, what?" "Yeah, so it's D&D. You've played before, right?" "No." "Oh, okay. Here's a PDF. Do me a favor. Jump in and save them from their own mistakes." So I said, "All right." And the next day when the actual meeting was, they in fact made several mistakes and were on the verge of dying and immediately barricaded themselves in a church. And the light cleric sitting behind behind one of the pews just happened to be me. And so, I mulliganed them from all of their horrendous decisions, because naturally it was like four very melee-oriented classes and absolutely not a single healer among them. I said,
fun.
Yeah, so I came in as a cleric, and the first time was not story-heavy. It was literally as a favor so that the DM didn't have to wipe 4 actual apes that were making the most monkey decisions possible. Yeah. But yeah, I came in, and that was pretty much where I just started actually learning about the classes, and the cleric is still one of my favorite classes. It's a toss-up on the day between cleric and warlock. I just think they're the most flavorful. But yeah, I don't have like a big a big story for my first time. No, I was asked very upfront, "Hey, could you help me?" And I said, "Yeah," because I'm that kind of guy. Also because I knew about D&D and I had never done the D&D before. I'd never, in fact, dungeoned and or dragoned.
Hey. And
You
now
tell
you
I
have.
went all in on the dragon side of things.
Yeah, you did.
Oh yeah, you did.
You did.
Dude, the art of the dragons and the original Pathfinder stuff was so clean, man. I was sold so fast. How could I not be?
Yeah, I didn't have all of that. I
Man,
had
I
a
don't blame you.
couple. I had a couple PDFs that was like, essentially, here's all of it in written form. I didn't actually see a lot of pictures, if I'm honest, which was fine because I was already familiar with what D&D was. At least it was like 2009, 2010. It had been established for some time.
So what were you jumping in on, like 4th edition?
No, well, I guess technically 4th edition probably was out at the time, but no one played 4th edition. I was playing 3.5, which is, we'll get to this a bit later, but it's a big part of why I don't actually really like 5. I don't like 5th edition very much. Like, as a player, I think as a DM, 5th edition is super good for keeping things concise and quick and easy to read.
Yeah.
But I think especially with the advent of D&D Beyond, which automates a lot of that if you use it. Big if you use it. 5 is just too streamlined. But yeah, I started with 3.5, really enjoyed it, kept playing. I played with them for years. Though I will say, in contrast to you, Matthew, and I've said this in the past before, we didn't do big narrative games. I've called them war games in the past, which is strictly speaking untrue. We're not playing a war game; we're playing D&D. We did meat grinders. The DM would call them. He would call them dungeon crawls. They were meat grinders, which is wild because he clearly didn't want to kill people.
Right.
But you know. Young, inexperienced DMs. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, exactly right.
That's it.
Anything else?
That's a good way to describe them. Meat grinders.
I'll tell you what, he didn't want to kill anyone, but god damn if he didn't almost constantly do it.
Oh, really? Was it just more about like quantity over quality?
No, it was the quality. They were just buffed. They were just buffed to the moon. I think if he had done lesser creatures more often, he would have been better at the style of game he was running. I think that was probably something that would have ended up being a strength. But he was he liked like the big boss encounter. So anytime we ran into like little mobs out in the world, they just fucking we eviscerated them. But then we'd run into a boss and oh boy.
Yeah, you don't actually need to roll the dice. You're just like, yeah, you killed this fucking goblin.
No,
I'm not making you roll.
It's not even that. Like
I love building the little encounters leading up to the big encounter.
Sure, they were fights. They weren't just you don't even need to roll, but they clearly were just there so that we could roll the dice. Early on, there was some small bit of narrative like in all of them, but this was D&D as presented by someone who didn't care about the narrative. We were here to roll dice and be cool.
Hey, that's pretty cool.
Here's to hoping you have a nice middle ground between our two styles.
Lamel. No, let's talk about stats. Yeah, so who here hates Okay, all right. So my first interaction with D&D is through a video game. Wow, what a surprise. Not knowing it was D&D. It was the MMO called Neverwinter. I used to play that with a mate back in the day, back in high school. So yeah, again, did not know what D&D was. It was just a free-to-play MMO that I could play with friends. So I played that for a little bit. That was nice. And then getting into the actual, board game turn virtual tabletop. First game was, well, you guys should know. You guys, it was Matt's campaign, Arcadia campaign.
Wait,
Remember that, Matt?
wait, that was the first one?
Remember that, Matt? Yeah.
Oh. You were so excited too.
Ever.
I just assumed this is the first
Matt's
time I've played in ages.
campaign.
Not this is the first time I've played.
Well, here's the thing though. At first, I said no, mostly because I didn't want it to be a bother. But then I watched like one stream of D&D and of Matt's campaign. I'm like, Matt, I want in. I'm so sorry, bro. Just let me in.
Yeah. So I asked Nat when I asked all of you guys that I originally invited. Mm-hmm. You all said yes. Nat said no, and I'm like, okay. Well, I mean, I have enough players, so no big deal. Nat watched the first two streams. Well, the first stream, yeah, I think it was first two, but it might have just been the first one. And then he messages me, and he's like, okay, I'm sorry. That looked really fun. I'm sold. Can I still join? Yeah. And I was like, yeah, we're not that far in. I can write you in at this next city they get to.
Now.
So that's what I did.
Now, I am very fucking inexperienced with D&D. I still consider myself inexperienced with D&D even today. But back then, I was very inexperienced. I asked for a homebrew class, which is the Shade Knight, when realistically, you were right, Dolit, that I could have just went Oath of Vengeance Paladin and still got the 100%. Results. But obviously, again, very new, very inexperienced. I did not realize it. And if I could...
I said okay.
Yeah, I know you said okay, but I felt like I've put more work onto you than that's necessary.
To this day, thank you for doing that, because it gave me experience homebrewing a class, which I hadn't done at that point. And I enjoyed doing it.
Yeah, and with that kind of helped me relieved my anxiety of being a bother to Matt and to everyone else that he's getting homebrew experience and I'm experiencing D&D. So yeah, it helped out a lot. Now after Arcadia, I really haven't played anything since because I'm too much of a pussy to go ask people if I can join their games. So yeah. I'm still waiting on Arcadia here, Matt, or your next campaign. I'm just sitting here waiting.
I'm gonna break your bubble live on recording.
Dun, dun, dun.
No, listeners get to be here for your heartbreak.
Don't say
Arcadia is dead.
Dun, dun, dun.
Arcadia's not coming back.
Finish
him. It's just the schedule doesn't work out for all the players. Getting all of y'all together again, it's just not possible to get all of y'all on the same schedule.
Yeah.
Some of the people only have time for one game now, and they're already in other games.
Yeah.
So Arcadia's not coming back. If you guys want, I can tell you where I was take that story at some point.
Sure.
Where y'all would have ended up.
I mean, can you think of a more reasonable time to let us know?
But yeah, sorry, that's not going to happen. I have tried running the game a few different times. Oh, you did want me to do it right now. I thought, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, where y'all left off, y'all were about to go on a task for Emperor Tristan, trying to track down this this master in the cloak that was it the goblins or the orcs? One of them mentioned. And y'all are going to go try and track him down. Ultimately, what y'all would have done is y'all were going to have a really cool vision scene the night before y'all left, which I had really wrote out. Everybody got a unique location, a unique person in their dream telling them something special. I really put a lot of work into that. I'm sad I don't actually get to play it out. Y'all would have gone to try and investigate and find the master in a cloak. I'm assuming y'all would have succeeded eventually. Even if it wasn't intentional, y'all would have succeeded eventually, because things would eventually progress to the point that, well, you succeeded because they're all on top of you. But if y'all found him naturally and it didn't get to that point, y'all would have like raided his camp. Y'all would have had your boss battle against the big baddie. And then like right before you kill him, the actual big bad evil guy of the entire campaign would have shown up.
Oh my god, it's a twist.
Would have been like, hey, yep, you failed, and now I'm taking my gift back, and kills the cloaked master, who by the way was an Oni. He was an Oni.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Trying to rile up all of the like monstrous races against the very human centric Ramasia.
Yep.
And would have just kind of looked at you all and been like, good luck if you actually want to stop me, and then disappear.
Arthas would have. He would have tracked him down.
Good luck on tracking him.
Well, yeah, but he would have at least tried to attempt to.
But when you got back, y'all would have been hailed as heroes as per Tristan's decree. Potentially, if y'all didn't like say no, he would even built a statue for you guys in the town. And then when y'all were in, and he also would have made the announcement because he realized how this all started, that he's going to slowly start trying to integrate the beast races, the goblins, the orcs, and all of them into society to make them feel more welcome to play against this like burgeoning tension that like the Oni was using in his favor. And then the Oracle would have finally woken up when y'all were having a private meeting with Tristan in the throne room, where she's in her like super wide over glazed eyes, super prediction mode, blasted off this immense prophecy where y'all got essentially the big bad evil guy y'all just saw has 5 different things set in motion, and if any one of them succeeds, he wins. So you have to stop those things.
Did we have a time limit, or is it just one of those?
She didn't say. She wouldn't have said. You would have had. Ultimately, you would have had enough time if y'all didn't like just ignore them. Yeah. As long as y'all were like making some kind of forward progression, you never would have run out of time, really.
Right.
The order you tackled them in would have determined like the severity of what you were dealing with. So one of the issues was in Avalon. That would be where you were from. That was where one issue would be. That was also where I was going to do some fun backstory things for you and Elizabeth. One of them was going to be in Elysium, which y'all kind of got that story hint before we stopped playing in the witch that y'all met.
Yeah.
That tested you with the golems that flattened Dalet's character.
You know, that happens more than you might realize.
Yeah, for
it happens. No, it happens quite a lot to all of my characters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Then you would have had one all the way down in Dalet's neck of the woods, the Wildlands. Had some fun story beats there for Salazar. The 5th one I hadn't quite nailed down where I wanted to place it. But the bad guys for those 3 were a demon for Avalon, basically an eldritch horror-esque thing in Elysium, a shadow dragon down there for Dalet.
Wow, we're gonna get our fill of that.
Yeah, we're gonna get our fill of that in our campaign that we're playing in. Yeah, That's why I always found that when Rose brought that up very funny. Um, and then, like I said, the fifth one I hadn't quite nailed down perfectly, but it was going to be there were 5 like challenges that y'all needed to tackle. Fifth one
Yep.
I never quite nailed down because I was bouncing between a couple different ideas of what I wanted to do with it, whether I wanted to take it to the Underdark area, whether I wanted to put it over in the Far East, or if I wanted to put it in the Archipelago. Um, there was just a few options. Uh, but ultimately, y'all would have nailed those 5 things. And then y'all would have fought the big bad evil guy. And along the way, y'all would have learned things like ultimately this world is the Arcadia is flawed. Um,
Oh, here
and
we go.
that it's not a complete world. Essentially, the history of Arcadia starts with a normal D&D plane. So the normal over
Mortal
like
plane?
we have like a normal mortal plane with
Yeah.
the normal D&D cacophony of gods and outer planes and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like a band of heroes saved like were constantly like saving this country and like where they were from, doing all these great deeds, and had just basically
Ah,
achieved their own epic victory. And then
but
uh an old god that was slowly dying and very near death made a gambit and disguised himself as a benevolent god, tricked them into making a wish to live and make in Arcadia a perfect utopia of a place to live. He used that wish and the remaining of his power to create the plane that Arcadia is. But what he used as the body, as the core of the plane, was his actual body. Uh, and so you like that dark deity that y'all get to face in the hell warped landscape that
yep,
was possessing the priest.
that was a part
That
of him.
that was him.
Okay.
That was his personality. He was manipulating things, manipulating those heroes from ancient times. Those heroes became the gods that are worshipped on Arcadia, and they're not
Mm-hmm.
actual true gods. They're more demigods than actual gods. They don't
Right.
know that. He knows that, and he's just using all of the magic and battles and faith and things on Arcadia to refuel and rebuild his body and strength, essentially.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but y'all would have like kind of tussled with him along the way and learned about all of this as well. Uh, and then ultimately y'all would have been faced with a choice of essentially merging Arcadia back into the normal life flow of a plane, realigning it with how things are supposed to be, um, or like not.
Right.
And, you know, like essentially the plane would eventually like more or less die, but it would be thousands of years later. But like by merging it back with like the normal flow of things, all of the gods that you worshipped would essentially be returning to the flow of souls and life,
Mm.
and they would all cease to exist. And it'd be a lot of like little complications. Ultimately, like it would be hard to argue for the other one, but you know, maybe y'all's characters didn't like the idea of all of these gods disappearing
Dun
or
dun dun.
this
Could have
or
been.
that. So,
Does this sound familiar?
Should
but
it?
yeah, I had
Final Fantasy 14. It's very, very reminiscent of it. The
I
Sundering
mean,
false
if you
gods, you know.
call the ancients gods, then yeah, I can see that. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I had a really fun, lots of little twists, like
Oh,
character
just
stories. Um, one of the and like the plane that I've been building a campaign on for a while that I've wanted to run a game on that I haven't had the time and I can't get enough players that have the time.
mm-hmm.
Um, is the plane that Arcadia and all of its peoples would eventually like melded into naturally. Uh, and depending on like story outcomes, I had a lot of fun things planned for certain characters. Like Arthas would have been like by the end of his story, if he had survived through everything.
Yeah.
Fast forward a couple hundred years, he would have been the last living Shade Knight.
Oh.
And so if you went to where the Shade Knight headquarters were on the plane after it merged into the regular, plane, you would have found the big Shade Knight hall mostly empty with just
Yeah.
Arthas there guarding the weapons, essentially.
Yeah.
That was always a fun little Easter egg I put in there. You would have been able to find the remnants of, well, not the remnants, that makes it sound like it was destroyed. You would have been able to find the kingdom that Ramasia became. Its name eventually changed.
Okay.
It was like the kingdom eventually was no longer named Ramasia. It became known as Arcadia, the Arcadian Empire, because part of that big prophecy the seer gave y'all before y'all would have trekked out to stop all of the disasters that were in play, is she would have looked at Tristan and been like, even though you love this land and the land loves you, you will never actually have an heir. So that story would have not really made an appearance in y'all's campaign at any point. But down the line, it was like eventually Tristan would pass, the throne would go to his sister, and she would have a son she would name Archimedes, and Archimedes the first would change the name of the Ramasian Empire to the Arcadian Empire after himself, and it just would have been a big change in things. Like I wrote so much for that campaign that will never really see the light of day.
Now I'm just sad just hearing this. Like, man, that sucks. But that's fucking D&D in a nutshell.
That ends up being the hardest thing, right? Is just time management, man. It's a lot of time management.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So that's where y'all stories would have been.
Dun dun dun.
You would have found there's so many other little things that I can tell y'all later if y'all want to just ask random questions at some point.
Sure.
But I had so much written out for you guys.
Thoughts stole it?
I mean, yeah, we know for a fact that Matthew is a writer, so I'm not surprised he had this all planned out. But yeah, it's
rate my story, Dalit.
It's a good one. It is relatable because of the 14 nod that Nat forced into my brain now. It was probably always going to be excellent.
You didn't actually have to rate it, but thank you.
I do what I can.
I'd give it 8.5 out of 10.
Oh, yeah, no, we don't do numbers.
I'm interested. Absolutely I'm not. Invested. I want to play it.
But yeah, what were we talking about before I explained to y'all what would happen to Arcadia?
We'd all gone through our backstory, so you'd actually just wrapped up. You'd actually just wrapped up Nat's first time in D&D, if anything.
Yep.
Yeah, there you go. Fair, I did. Nat's first time in D&D was also my first full game I DM'd. I had tried to DM a couple times before. It never really panned out. Never got more than a game or two in. So that was my first longer campaign thing I got to do, and that was a lot of fun.
Oh, okay.
I did end up doing another one after that for some friends locally. And that was the start of the world that I want to run a game in that I had built. I built it very small. Whereas when I built Arcadia for you guys, I built the entire world at one time, essentially. With them in this campaign, I built essentially a small, like in Australia, essentially, in size, but a small island nation, and just kind of focused all of my story building on there, essentially, for that campaign that I was running. And then I just added little bits for outside things where it was relevant to the people that were playing and their backstories. And I would have built based on where they went, if they ever left it, or when they left, or whatever. that world is the world that I've put most of my D&D writing into in recent time.
I feel like that's a much better way of going about it than what you were doing with us, though. As impressive as that story was, and it was, I don't know why you were so far away from where we were currently.
Yeah, that was why, because like it was my first time, right? And so I was just thinking big picture, big picture, big picture.
Yeah.
So I wrote everything like all at once, essentially. Like from the go, I had a story in mind, which was fighting the big bad evil guy that was behind like the 5 nails, as I was referring to them in my notes.
Again, 14.
The 5 nails, like his attempts at disrupting the world and throwing it into oblivion.
Bro thinks he's fucking animal.
But at the same time, like I was just trying to do all of that at once. I had that in my head, and it was gonna play out however it played out with you guys. But like I had a big picture in mind, and then I just kind of started filling things in as I went. Whereas with this one, with this world, I start small and I build out from there, like the immediate area, and then that's how I've continued to build this world. I find something about this world I want to build, so I start very small and I kind of build out from there.
Right, yeah.
And like Dalit said, I think that's probably the better way to do it. Start small and build out.
Instead of just building
big because,
and then just filling in some spots and all that.
Right, because whereas like with Arcadia, I had this big idea that was fully it required you guys to actually go out and do, and I didn't, and when I was writing it, like initially I didn't like consider what y'all were going to be doing, like if y'all were going to try and stay just in Romacia, if y'all were going to try and travel the world. I didn't even think about things like that. I kind of found ways like I could push y'all in like those directions while still letting y'all do whatever y'all wanted. But it ultimately was just like it was a little bit like flawed, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Because it did require a little bit of finagling on my part. But whereas in the small and building out, I can build whatever I need to in the situation. Right. So I build what I need for this, like, so first session of this local game I did, they were in this one city on the island, like one of the 3 big ports on the island nation. So I just did the immediate area. I did the city, what was around it, and then the forest off like right out, like just right outside the city, essentially, where there was a lot where like the first big quest essentially would have taken place. And I just did that. That was right there. And then I kind of built the rest of that island from there, like spreading out kind of in directions that they could have gone, and where they went is the direction I furthered, and then did the same thing till the whole island was essentially built and populated.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's probably the better way to do it, and I realize that now, and I think if I ever do get to run a game for you guys again, hopefully that'll be a little bit more apparent, that like things are a little bit better written.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get there.
But yeah, because I was wrapping up our intro to D&D thing, like, yeah, that my intro was playing and a very difficult game, and I very quickly ended up transitioning to running games. Yeah. So forever. And I do greatly enjoy running games. I do. I can have a lot of fun with that, and I do have a lot of fun with that, especially making creatures and boss encounters. And like Dalit, you were saying about your first game and your first group, how your DM was about like those big encounters more so than the little encounters along the way. Um, I really enjoy building the little encounters as a part of the whole experience leading up to the boss.
Yeah.
Um, do you guys remember when y'all dived into the hell warped landscape?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
The one that we
duck
stealth through. Yeah.
Yeah, that y'all stealth through. It had demons walking around, it had monsters walking around, all to kind of sell that like everything was just warped and out of place.
Yeah.
Then you had like I loved that cave I put together. That was like it looked like a pristine like marble palace, but it was just stained and corrupted by this ichor.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed the corrupted fallen angels that were like the mini boss before the actual boss.
Yeah, the twin angels. One had a whip, one had a sword.
Yeah. Like I really enjoy building those encounters. So I really enjoy DMing. I have had a blast playing though. Like uh, playing is a lot of fun too. Playing
Yeah.
your character in a game is very different from using those characters as NPCs.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you use them as NPCs, a lot of the adventure or uh, initial personality growing things, like some of those you kind of resolve, like without actually having them play out, depending on the circumstance of bringing them in, I suppose. Um,
Right.
if you're running one to just run with a group from beginning to end, then you can run it just like a you're playing the character, and that's basically what you're doing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when they serve as just like side character roles or quest givers and things like that, you kind of miss some of that. But
Mm-hmm.
um, there's a lot of fun to DMing that I really really enjoy. I couldn't tell you which I enjoy doing more, DMing or playing. I think I enjoy both quite a lot. I think my biggest gripe with DMing is when I end up in those moods where I have writer's block, and I'm just like, I need to figure out what we're doing for this next session, but I
Yeah.
can't write. And I was having that issue a lot back. Like that's why in the very first time, like we could have brought Arcadia back and it was actually possible. The reason we didn't is because I just had massive writer's block and I couldn't figure out
Oh, that makes
what to do.
sense. Yeah. Though,
Yeah.
I mean, at that point,
Eh,
wouldn't you have had so much done out anyway?
I had no connecting points.
Ah, okay. Okay. So the bridges weren't in.
Like, yeah, the bridges weren't in. Like, to be honest, I still hadn't figured out where y'all were. Uh, like I had figured out up to where y'all were because when y'all came back, y'all were right about to go tackle the hellscape. I had that figured out,
Mm-hmm.
like that entire section. Um, I couldn't figure out how to get from there to essentially your confrontation with the cloaked master. Like that, I was having a hard time bridging those two.
Right.
Um,
Gotcha. I mean,
and to be fair, the entire hellscape section only existed because y'all didn't clean out all of the cultists in that very first session. So that was a whole like mini section that existed because of the decisions the players ended up making.
right. I mean,
So
would that have mattered for like just one session, especially after since literally a guy came out of thin air and just fucking attacked the king and us, and then
that
we
wasn't originally a thing. That was something I added later. And I to this day, I hate that entire scenario because
oh
that's not how I would have run it now. That was ran very rushed, very poorly. It was another
Mm.
one of those, this is a kind of a thing I know that will happen, but I don't know how to make it work. And so I
okay
just kind of went with it on the spot. I really like that character. I really like the role he plays, and I really think like that section could have been very good,
But you
but
dealt your hand too quickly,
I
you
dealt my
think?
hand too quickly. I wasn't ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't give it enough thought because ultimately it became one of those things I really don't like. And I can't stand it when people do. And it's one of those, no matter what the players do, it's going to play out this way. Like
Right.
it makes the player decisions and the role playing pointless because because it's going to play out this way. I think in
Right.
small, very small scenarios, that's fine. But for something like that, I feel like I should have handled it better. I feel like I should have made the fight more of a fight instead of what it was.
On rail scene that
Yeah,
only I interacted with, essentially, more or less.
yeah. And even then, if that's what I wanted, and that is kind of what I wanted, I could have done it better than I
Mm.
did in that situation. Um, yeah, I'll tell you more about all of that, off cast. But
Yeah.
yeah, I do enjoy DMing, but and I've learned a lot, especially from mine and Dollet's DM that we play with
Right.
like now. She
Yeah.
DMs for us. I've learned so much from her just watching her DM our games, playing in her games. She's an incredible DM, and I'm so thankful to be in her games. I'm so thankful to be her
Yeah,
friend.
Rosie's great.
But it's an absolute blast. And like I said, in a lot of ways, I think the the things I think I did good as a DM, um, the things that I think like I liked about how I DM'd, I feel like she does as well, or in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I enjoy that. So I can see where to polish the way I did things.
Yep.
So
Well, that's good. That's the thing about first time in anything is just learning how to do things.
yeah,
And then once you learn it, you polish it, and then all of a sudden I'm fucking good
yeah. I mean,
at this.
I've got a really great campaign like written like right now that like I could. It's ready. I can throw people into it. It's fun. It's cool.
Wait,
It's just
is is this the one that you offered to me? And I said, yeah, I'll do
yeah,
any
the one
campaign.
I offered to both of you guys,
Yeah.
and you were both like, well, you said yes right off the bat. Dalton said, yeah, depending on the time, I'd be happy to do it.
Yeah, my
Um,
work life makes this difficult considering everything in the world wants to happen around 8 p.m. my time.
yeah.
The stars
So
have aligned. Why are they not moving out? Go somewhere else. That's not 8 p.m.
but it's while I felt confident I had at least you two.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. I couldn't get other players. I couldn't get enough other players to really round out a group, especially because
Well, Matt.
especially because of issues. I'll say it that way. There are issues that made getting a full group difficult. So
Yeah. Well, I have a solution for you, Matt.
go
Go
for it.
on,
Why
we're listening.
don't Solid and I just do a 2-player campaign and we both play fucking warlocks? Yeah.
I forgot we
Yep.
talked
Yep.
about the two warlock thing. Oh man. Oh.
So yeah, that's my solution.
I love warlocks. I was so
So
happy
do
when I
Dollar
read
and
it.
I.
I was
We
so
want to
happy
play
when
one
I read
together.
because in Arcadia you were doing a completely homebrew subclass for fighter, and
Yep.
Dalit was just a completely homebrew class. That I ended also for fighter. I think that that ended up switching when we did that brief restart to Arcadia
Yeah,
that went
you
for
and
like 4 or
Kobe
5
had worked
sessions.
out a much better way of doing what you had in your head.
Yeah, and made it a warlock subclass, and I really enjoyed like being able to play the patron, especially the patron I made for it.
Yeah, it was cool.
And the way he would have played a part in certain scenarios going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And his connection to Arcadia, because he has a connection to Arcadia. So it was cool.
I'm assuming he's also a false god, correct? Because he's not.
No.
No.
So y'all did get this lore bit at one point, but there was like a period of history that was known as the era of Ur, the kingdom of Ur. It's like the largest known civilization to ever exist on Arcadia at one point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And it eventually fell, but the king of that like kingdom, the last king and their greatest king, was the elder brother to Dalet's patron, essentially.
Okay.
I'm going to be honest,
elder
I
brother
don't quite
ascended
remember
to
the
elder
patron.
brother ascended to the throne. Elder brother ascended to the throne, and younger brother was like, "Well, I'm gonna go study arcane magics and weapons," and ends up becoming this extra planar entity that has this massive, like planar armory that he just became fascinated with weapons in his studies.
Holy shit, that's fucking cool.
And so he has a connection to Arcadia because that's where he was born.
Mm.
And that's where his his family was. But then when he became an extraplanar entity, he knew about the situation Arcadia was in, but he but he was just like, I can't do anything. Oh well.
Yeah, I have a whole armory. There's nothing I can do against the Sundering.
Yeah, I mean, he couldn't directly intervene anymore once he ascended to that position.
Yeah.
Because the era of Ur was before the divine veil existed on Arcadia, so the gods couldn't directly intervene, and he was sort of semi-classified as a deity, so he couldn't directly intervene like that.
Yeah, so he was behind the veil, and he just had to watch. Yeah,
he was able to do things through his packed weapons and marked weapons and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was tons of like fun things I had written for Dalet's character, your character. I had some good stuff for Elizabeth. I had a fun thing for Arngrim. X. Well,
we don't talk about X.
I had some interesting ideas for X that I really wanted to see how Reef would have handled those with him. I'm fairly certain I know what he would have done, but at the same time, the way he played him, I was like, I don't know. He might surprise me. But
I mean, he surprised everyone else, so
yeah. I mean, I had contingencies if he did surprise me for what would happen. I think
Batman over here.
I think the only character that I was quickly running out of things was Kronka, because all of her stuff was kind of centered in that first arc.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So,
but
yeah,
it would have missing mother. So, right?
Like her father was going to play a part in that arc as it continued.
Okay.
I hadn't quite worked out the mother part yet.
Okay.
I had a few things that I could do. It really depended on what Leek ended up wanting to do with Kronka, or where she took her or reacted to things. So, yeah, so I had a lot of things planned for your characters. I had a really fun interaction when y'all went towards Elysium. If y'all went the most traveled route, which would have been through Malsadot.
Oh, right, yeah.
You would have encountered Salazar's twin brother.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that would have been a fun interaction I had planned out.
Are they all twins?
No.
Or triplets?
No. One's younger.
No. Yeah, one's younger. So yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, y'all would have encountered Salazar's twin brother, which is a fun one because I had him as a teacher at the academy in Malsadot. So that would have been a fun little thing y'all would have stumbled upon if y'all took that route.
Salazar would absolutely try and avoid that. I'll be like, no, we're going to Macedon.
He would.
I don't think he would have known.
Oh, he would.
He's been on his own.
Mind.
He was on his own and traveling for so long. He didn't expect his father to be in the capital either. To be fair, the player didn't expect his father to be as capable as he was. So there's always a surprise.
Yeah, that was a misunderstanding on my part when Dalit described him. So I was like, oh, he's capable. Okay, I can make that
works
work.
out. It just made Sally surprise, not nobility, but surprise wealth.
Yeah, I did have a really fun and hopefully played out as like a heart-wrenching scene for Salazar. Because if y'all had went from Ramasia to Elysium, if y'all went from Ramasia to Elysium, then you would have, after the Elysium incident, y'all would have gotten a letter, essentially, because y'all had that interaction with Salazar's brother.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all would have essentially gotten a letter, because they knew where you were, asking Salazar to come home. His father was in critical shape.
Oh yeah, that would have
led y'all. Yeah, it would have led y'all down to his home, and his father just being in poor health and dying, and hopefully a very heartwarming and heart-wrenching scene for Salazar I kind of had intended, where his father had made him a parting gift, essentially, as he made him this magical weapon, which would have been also struck up a really interesting conversation with Salazar's patron, who would have been something along like, damn, your dad's good. That weapon, that's nice.
Just so you understand, when you're dead, I'm keeping that.
Yeah, pretty much. Now, if y'all had gone to I can't remember the name now, but if y'all went to where Salazar where Arthas is from, if y'all went Avalon. If y'all went to Avalon for a second after Ramasia.
Oh, Ramasia, yeah.
They wouldn't have known where to send for Salazar because they wouldn't know exactly where he was.
I don't think there was any indication to go to Avalon other than the second Shade Knight.
Actually, I think it's been so long, but I think Elizabeth wanted to go to Avalon for one reason or another, and I can't remember why.
Wait, did she?
I feel like
maybe
she did. She had some story beats that were going to play out there, tied in with some of Arthas's. They would have tied together.
So it's not impossible that we would have ended up there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it wasn't, but I just don't think it was an immediate thing after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if y'all had went there after Ramasia and that'd been y'all's second stop, well, they wouldn't have known how to get a hold of you, essentially. So it would have taken them longer. So by the time you got there, his dad would have already passed.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't have gotten the moment to talk with his dad or anything. But the weapon would have still been there.
Just won't have the lasting moment, final.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh no, he would have just carried angst with him now.
Yeah. Then you would have.
And then I'll probably there was given him a fatherly talk to Salazar because I'm technically a dad as well. So.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot how old Arthas was. Right.
Yeah.
Then there was if y'all had waited long enough and pushed Avalon all far enough, eventually y'all would have had a very interesting pull there from the Queen of Avalon. because she would have incognito sailed snuck out of Avalon and sailed over to Ramasia to plea for help from Tristan.
Oh, really? Actually,
because
yeah.
because come to learn and find out, all the bad things that are happening in Avalon aren't her fault.
Oh, they're not. I was under the assumption it was. Okay.
Nope, she's being like, so the ruling class of Avalon is a family, like a normal kingdom, like family inheritance. That they have a group of knights called the because the name of the family is the Dragonheart family.
Yeah.
And they have a group of knights, which are basically the royal guard and the strongest knights in Avalon, called the Dragon Shields, or Shields of the Dragons, and they protect them. The problem is the evil guy that's connected to, or the demon that's connected to Elizabeth and Arthas's story, had corrupted a majority of the Dragon Shields.
Yeah.
So she was basically being held prisoner by the Dragon Shields, and they were the ones actually doing everything.
Right.
Just saying it was by orders of the Queen. By orders of the Queen.
Yep. Yep.
Using, some demonic magic trickery to make it seem like the Queen was okay and showing up at appearances and whatnot. And ultimately, there was only like 3 of the shields who hadn't been corrupted, and one of them helped her get out of the castle and come try and find help.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
there was a fun thing. Would have learned more about dragons in Arcadia because they actually weren't extinct. They were just very, very hidden because there were so few of them.
Yeah.
The Shadow Dragon's plan was to use the Dragon Bless to return the dragons to Arcadia by transforming them into full dragons if he had, fully resurrected and rampaging. So I had a lot of fun stories planned for you guys.
Can we? Nah, no, I'm not gonna say it. Never mind.
But yeah, I don't know how this turned into me explaining my campaign.
That is what this became.
Got some closure. Yeah.
That was not the intention at all.
I finally got the closure I've been waiting for the last 8 fucking years or so.
It's not been that long.
I'm happy. You want to check?
You don't want to check.
It's not that. It hasn't been that long.
You want to check?
No.
Go to Roll20.
No, I don't.
Go to Roll20.
No, I don't think I will.
Because our last... It wasn't on Halloween, was it? The very last one?
I think it was.
It wasn't on... Yeah, well, I know it was on October, which is coming up to our 9th, 10th year.
Stop speaking!
I think our last game was in 2017.
Oh,
so that would be 7 years ago.
Oh my goodness. No wonder I couldn't remember so much.
You want to, it's because it is my official first game, it's something that I tend to remember and revise and think about, how much, what would I change in terms of, expressions or actions and all like that. I still remember some of the stuff, not everything, obviously, but yeah, I just hold fond memories of it.
There's a lot of things, there's a lot of times I've wanted to write out what would happen with the story, but never did, because the story would have twisted and changed depending on how y'all handled things.
Yeah, exactly right.
So it's I could never perfectly write out what would happen without seeing how characters would react. But I'd love to do something to kind of serve as an epilogue or a finale to it, so that there is an actual closure to it of a sort.
Yeah.
I have a YouTube channel dedicated to D&D videos, where I have been slowly re-uploading the Arcadia sessions for posterity. And I'm wondering if I shouldn't one day invest the time and whatnot into making just kind of messaging you guys that were in the campaign to kind of get some rough ideas of how y'all would have handled a broad scenario, and like
Mm-hmm.
made little like story shorts where I'm basically just reading a story like how you would listen to an audiobook of the things that we never got to.
God, you should do that.
It'd be sick, I think.
Yeah, just to be
I'm down.
A lot of work,
yeah,
but even still, I think it'd be worth it for you.
yeah, a lot of work. Yeah, so maybe one day I'll get around to doing that. We'll see. If I do, you guys will definitely hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I should certainly hope so.
Yeah, I'm gonna need y'all's input.
Yeah.
But I think over the years, and especially playing these last few years in the game for Rose, has helped me grow as a DM. Like I've learned a lot watching her, and I think I'd say it helped me grow a lot as a player too. Also, why the heck I ended up making a super charismatic character, and I'm a super not charismatic person.
I
Uh,
yeah, no, I feel you, Matt.
because I think my character in our Fridays game is the most charismatic of all of the players.
I think so, unless Raul is hiding like some kind of big old secret.
Yeah. So I'm the one who always ends up having to talk in situations. I'm just like, no, stop making me talk. He's super charismatic and super smart. I am neither.
Yep.
Man, this episode is like really gone off from what we intended.
Well, it just means we don't cross this idea off the list. We get to come back to it again.
Yeah, I guess I want to talk about stats. I'm pretty sure we can quickly whip out.
I don't think that's a quick discussion. I don't think that's a quick discussion.
Okay, I lied. I just want to say that because I just want to talk about fucking perception checks and all that.
So, let's end it with this then. Let's in like Dotlet, like for you, you've never DM'd.
No.
But you have played in a lot of games.
A lot's pushing it. I played in enough games.
Okay, you've played in a fair number of games. Do you think as you've played in more games and played with more people that you've kind of grown as a player in any way?
Sure. Like I said, I don't want to say I have a background in acting because that's not strictly speaking true. I was an amateur, but I certainly started this under the idea that it would make me better when I was doing more and more VO, and now it's just been a way to stretch the brain and do fun things, and I'm sure it has grown me. I'm sure I've been able to figure out different aspects of how I bring certain emotions and certain concepts to life. I certainly haven't done much writing. It's not my thing. I've been told I'm a fine writer, but fine and good are not the same word, and it sounds like they were just being kind. So, I'm sure this has actually made it much easier for me to write if I ever did want to as well. The downside to all this is I pretty much always just play a cleric, except for the couple times I've played a warlock, which is fine. Again, favorite two classes. If I never play another class, I'll be happy to continue just playing a warlock or a cleric, or if I go over to Pathfinder, a witch or a cleric.
Right. I do know it's you're a very fun player to have. I can say that. Like when you keep your player notes and stuff, they're always very entertaining to read. So yeah, no, it is one of those things. Like even when you're like nervous, like for a first time player, right? The longer you play, you tend to get better as long as you're playing with a good crowd, good group of players, a good DM. You'll improve as you play. Definitely, I think that's a very true statement. Like just I could ask Nat the same question I just asked you, but as the one who DM'd for him for his first game, and like the only game he's really played into my knowledge. he's definitely grown as a player just in that little bit. Like I've seen it plenty of times. So
Yeah, D&D is a remarkable
I
game. It's a remarkable game.
yeah.
It's interesting seeing people
it is a
grow
very
as
very fun game.
yeah, it's interesting seeing people grow as players, but also I think as I've played, what I've been very interested in is watching people grow as people. Because the one thing you kind of have to get good at, like it or not, is being socially apt, being very good at being sociable, right? Otherwise, you're not long
Yeah.
for a table. So
I think the social side of things is a very important thing that goes kind of under the radar with D&D. Um, because it's a
Which is
group
ironic.
game. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's a group game, You need to be able to communicate with your group. You need to be able to actually, put up with the people you play with
Yeah.
to at least some extent, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Before, during, and after, you got to be good at socializing with people.
yeah, exactly. You have to you just got to be like mindful in some ways of what you're doing, because I've seen plenty of like horror stories on Twitter and Reddit of D&D games gone wrong, or groups gone wrong, or DMs gone wrong.
Yeah.
Like so many of the times I've read these, I feel like the core problem ends up being whoever the story is about just doesn't have those interpersonal skills.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's always a bit of a surprise. Something that's become sort of popular nowadays is I forget what they call them, like lines and veils or whatever. Like really, it's just about talking to each other beforehand and knowing, like, as people, what goes too far for a person or what don't they want to deal with, and making sure that just you don't
Yeah.
have to ever really encourage that. If someone's an introvert at a table, don't make them the face, even if they're like statted out for it. Don't force that on them.
Yeah.
And if like they've gone through a rough life, don't bring up things that have made their life rough if you don't have to. There's no reason to, and I'm using this word correctly, not like the internet, trigger people over a game. It's silly.
Yeah.
Just being aware of who's
Like
at
I
your
say-
table, and it goes a long way. And the skill set you get playing the game makes you better at socializing. You become a better talker. You become a slightly faster thinker, and it's just about doing it more and more. It's like any skill, really.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
so that was not really where we were planning for this episode to go, but I
Hey,
you ended
I'm
up with a whole
I'm
episode.
ready
You got
to.
an episode of storytelling with Matt,
It's true.
and
Yeah.
there's a very strong chance that's what this episode will be titled: "Storytelling with Matt." Because I think that sounds clever. I might actually do that.
I'm always down to bitch and complain about stats and whatnot.
Yeah, that is
about
a conversation we absolutely should have. But it's nice to know that we still have that in our back pocket on like a rough day when we can't think about what to talk about.
Yeah, so there'll be a part 2, a stats and rules and etc. and so forth.
Because that's gonna be
Yeah.
real easy for us.
Yeah, so look forward to that.
Yeah, hopefully by then Matt actually has the fucking book, so we
hopefully
can have a look at it.
So we as a group can look at it.
Yeah.
I know there's gonna be a free version that comes
been...
out in, I don't know if it's just a couple of months or something. It's fairly soon.
I mean, unless someone just buys it and then just
no,
converts
not
it
even
into
that.
a
I'm
PDF
pretty sure there's an
file and zip it up.
official version that's going to come out on PDF. It's not going to have all of the art, and I don't think it's going to be a full version of the books, but it is designed to help people get started with a lot, if not all, of what you need. So you'll be able to poke around in it sooner rather than later. And like you say, I'm sure someone who already has the book will be free and loose with the information they've received, the power that they have.
Yeah.
I have glanced at the book when I was in the bookstore a couple weeks back. I glanced through the book for a little bit. There were some interesting things in there, to say the least.
Bro, they
So
fucking change a lot.
I look forward to getting my hands on the book itself.
I'm going to at some point. I'm torn between. I want a book to have so I can read through it, but I don't want to have to then buy a version for D&D Beyond. I hate that they do this. I feel like I should just buy the $30 book, maybe $40 book, and then put in a code wherein it understands that's my code, and it works in D&D
Wait, I
Beyond.
thought they did that.
No, they sell a bundle.
They not do that anymore?
No, they sell a bundle where you can get both the digital and the physical version, and they sell them separately.
I swear that was actually the case.
So I'll probably end up buying the physical version for myself at the moment, because I'm not a part of any games that are going to make the shift to the new rule set. They're too deep, because every game I'm a part of is at least 2 years old now.
Are you in more than just one?
I'm in one other one. It happens like once a month.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that's my plan. I'll probably just get the physical. I would, if I thought I was gonna actually be rolling up a new character soon, I would just get the digital version and read it online. But
right,
is what it is. I would prefer to read.
I'm not running a game. I'm not running a game anytime soon, so you ain't got to worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
I would prefer a physical as well.
He DMs me, hey, you want to make your character? It's like, bro, I already have like 20 other characters.
I'm telling you, I definitely have more characters than I have played. I enjoy building characters.
Oh yeah, same.
Oh yeah. I have so many characters.
Well, you're a fucking DM. You could be like, whoop.
Oh, if he wasn't a DM, he would still be making characters.
I would still. There are some characters that I have that I just don't think make great NPCs, so they're just there for characters. Then I have some characters that do make good NPCs, and that's how I use them. I know, like our DM, mine and Dollet's DM from Friday, a lot of her NPCs end up being characters that she will and has and can run, which is cool. It's great. I normally, like, a lot of my NPCs end up being NPCs designed for that purpose.
Right.
So very rarely do I make an NPC and then turn them into a character.
Yeah.
Now, I will have characters that I turn into NPCs. Like, my very first character is a multi-planar traveler deity, essentially. He pops from plane to plane. He sees what's going on. Sometimes he pushes adventurers or people in the right direction to make a difference for the better. When he sees something going down, he tries to keep things in the up and up. One of my characters that I made if I made me but a fantasy version in like D&D, what would they be like? So I have a character for that. He makes a great NPC many times. Yeah, things like that. Like, one of my characters I ran in a game is an NPC that sometimes pops up for like quests that might pop up in cities. And yeah, I have plenty of characters that become NPCs, but I never start off as NPCs.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, there's how did we get on that topic? How does this happen?
I'm gonna be real with you, I actually have no idea.
Dalit, what's going on tonight? How has this episode been this way?
I don't know. I knew that this was going to be an easy topic to get lost on, though, so I'm not surprised.
Well, obviously we can talk about D&D for a while. We've put a decent bit here, and it's just been me talking, I feel like, for the most part. Yeah. I literally just uploaded an episode not long ago that will have long since been out by the time this one's goes up. That's just called Matt's Rambling Again.
And now
there's another one.
It's going to be called Matt Yapping about D&D.
Oh, man. You guys are supposed to be here to stop me from rambling. Come on.
No.
Well, no.
We're very much not here.
You gave us our closure.
But But yeah, so D&D, we love it. We'll talk about it more.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know what this episode is. It wasn't originally what it is, but that means we have more D&D episodes coming to you in the future, TM.
Please look forward
Yep.
to it.
Please indeed. Dalit, I'm choking. Do the outro.
Why do you do this to me? Both you and Aqua, my goodness. Hey guys, thanks for listening to us ramble. If you're interested in hearing more of our topics, you can find us on YouTube, at Apple, or on Spotify at Celestia Radio Podcast. If you're interested in being a part of our little conversations, leave us a comment down below or at the hashtag AskCRP. Regardless, show us some love with a like or a sub, and we'll see you in the next one.
Catch you later.
Bye.